Welcome to the Transcendent Minds podcast, the podcast where we explore the mysteries of the mind and the human experience. Join us as we delve into topics such as consciousness, spirituality, and personal growth with expert guests and thought-provoking discussions. Get ready to expand your mind and discover new insights on this journey of self-discovery. Now here's your host, Peter Michael Deeds. In this episode of the Transcendent Minds podcast, we will explore the important topics of self-love, body sovereignty, and authentic self-expression. My guest, Heather Gale, is a remarkable body sovereignty coach who guides women through the challenging journey of overcoming negative body image and finding self-acceptance and self-expression. Heather's holistic approach, which incorporates the mind, body, soul, and energy, creates a nurturing environment for women to heal and embrace their true selves. Her commitment to empowering others is evident in her passionate support and wisdom for those struggling with negative body image. Heather, welcome to the Transcendent Minds podcast. It's great to have you on the show. Bring the audience in and tell us about your backstory.
Thanks for having me. As you said, I work with women with negative body image, and it really started because I had a negative body image. I felt like I was a prisoner in my own body. And when I started doing the inner work and doing the healing, I was like, wow, I need to share this with other women because there's so many that struggle with negative body image. We're taught to focus on the way we look and not the way we feel. So I wanted to help women return back home to themselves and focus on the way they feel and not worry so much about the way that they look.
That's important because we're presented with all these images of magazines, airbrushed to the nth degree, and it bleeds into the cultural narrative that women are supposed to look a certain way. But you're right, it's more about how they feel and not so much about how they look, but how they function. Because that's really important. Being at home with oneself, feeling at home in your body. And I think men have the same thing, they just don't admit it. We've spoken off air quite a lot, and I know your path is paved with wisdom and insights that have helped so many people break free from the shackles of body shame and to embrace self-love. What inspirations led you to become a body coach and create programs like you spoke to me about the embodiment experience and natural body freedom?
Wow. To put it in simple terms, I had this desire to help people. I have ever since I was a kid. I always wanted to help people. And this was the avenue I felt was the best way to do it, the best way for me to share these gifts into the world. But with the embodiment experience, it was a reaction to what I noticed was happening in the mainstream, where everyone's heal your trauma and then you'll feel safe. And I was like, wait a minute though, because if we really look at trauma causes you to feel unsafe. So what if we found a way to be safe and then heal trauma? I just felt like it was so backwards, and I participated in that as well. I learned from trial and growth. I don't say trial and error, trial and growth, because after I would do the shadow work, the inner child work, without grounding into my body and feeling safe first, I would feel so drained. Like I would feel burnt out for the rest of the day. I could function, but I definitely wasn't thriving for the rest of the day. And I did feel the shifts, but the bounce back time was just way too long. And I said, no, there's got to be a better way. There absolutely has to be a better way. So I started experimenting with what if I just focus first on being safe and feeling safe and really starting to feel comfortable with my nervous system, safe in my environment, and not even focus on healing. Just say, okay, how can I be safe today? How can I be safe in this moment? How can I choose this and have the feeling? And when I started doing that, I like doing the shadow work and the inner child work. It's necessary. Like we need to do it in order to heal. But the bounce back time was so much faster. Like I would be done with a meditation and I would ground back into myself. And then I'd be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go for a walk and go walk my dog and be all happy and be like, wow, look at all the beautiful flowers and the butterflies. And instead of being like, oh, I need to curl up and lay in bed and watch TV, it was so different.
How did you cultivate the conditions for feeling safe? Because the brain is not designed for happiness, it's designed for survival and it
Mhm.
wants psychological safety. So, how did you cultivate the conditions that facilitated safety as a precursor to doing all the shadow work and the inner child work?
The interesting thing about the brain is, yeah, it's wired for survival, but there's three things that it really wants. How do I save calories? How do I survive? How do I thrive? And so I had to, one, constantly tell myself, okay, feeling safe doing this practice will help me thrive. Feeling safe doing this practice will actually save me calories. Feeling safe doing this practice will actually have me survive. And there's this one practice where you can just look around the room, like look in all corners of the room and go, okay, I'm safe here. I'm safe here. And it takes 10 seconds to look around the room and go, you know what? I'm safe here. And like laying hands on your body will also really help, like putting your hand on your heart and looking around the room. I'm safe here. Okay, great. And then you keep going back to what you're doing. The mind tries to convince us that it's going to take a long time because that's what we've been told. But what if we tell ourselves a different story of it actually doesn't take that long? Then the mind will have to catch up with that.
I love the simplicity. You're absolutely right. We are conditioned to think things take a long time, but you can facilitate an experience in simple ways. Because when it is simple, it becomes effective because it's something they can practice and integrate into their day. They don't have to go do some kind of mantra or affirmation or vision board. As you say, that primary step is to have safety, and you can do that in very practical ways. We spoke off air, we talked a lot about healing body shame and fostering self-love. And I think that resonates with so many people, but it's accessing the capability of how to foster self-love and how to heal body shame. And I know that resonates with many women, and they may not voice it, but it's that hidden cry in them. And my question is, can you enlighten the audience on how your personal experiences have influenced your approach to this work?
To be perfectly honest, I got tired of everything feeling like it was just so heavy and had to be so hard. Yeah, I thought there's no way that life has to be this hard. There's no way that healing has to be this hard. It's no, I already experienced the hard when I felt those deep insecurities, when I had those thought loops in the back of my mind telling me I wasn't good enough because I wasn't pretty enough or thin enough or whatever it was. I was like, no, so why does healing have to be hard too? It just didn't make sense to me. And that was really what was behind it. I'm like, how can I do this in a light way that brings in fun, brings in joy, brings in pleasure? Because that's what we really want. Instead of being like, oh, you need to go into the deep, dark basement of your subconscious mind and cry and feel heavy. And that's beautiful and that has a moment, but that doesn't have to be our everyday when we're doing the work. And a lot of the work is those tiny little micro moments that we don't even acknowledge. Those moments where we walk down the street and we see someone who's overweight and we judge them. And then we just, oh, reframe. You know what? They are beautiful. And so am I. And that's where the work is. It's not just in the meditations, and that's like the larger work that can help clear stuff. But what's the point of doing that if I can't apply it to everyday life? I really wanted to make things very easy and digestible for people so they can apply it to their everyday life. Because let's be honest, we're busy. We've got stuff to do. We can't sit under a Bodhi tree and meditate for 40 days. That's not possible. Not anymore.
What would be one thing that somebody could do if they're feeling they want to heal their body shame? How would they reframe that? Somebody listening to this thinking, yeah, okay, I can't sit under a Bodhi tree for 40 days, but I'm still feeling this shame about my body. How can I start to reframe that in a simple way?
One of the things that I noticed, it happened with me, it happened with my clients, was when they would do like online shopping, because we all need to shop, right? And if they saw an outfit or a shirt that they didn't like, it wasn't just, oh, I don't like the shirt. It was, oh, I'm judging her body. Oh, she's overweight. She's too thin. I don't like that. So the first part was about the shirt. That's not my style. That's not my thing. The mind turned it into a whole thing, and it just perpetuated the judgments of other people, which also perpetuates the judgments of ourselves. So, one thing I started doing with my clients was I said, every single time you go online shopping, do it consciously. Go in and say out loud, oh, you know what? I don't like that shirt. She's beautiful. I don't like that shirt. She's beautiful. I don't like those pants, right? Get so specific, because if we don't get specific about those things, then those programs will continue to play in the back of our minds. And then we'll be like, why do I feel so bad about myself? Because you're judging people and you don't even realize it. So that's one thing. Another thing is I have people stand barefoot on the ground and inhale for 3 breaths. So inhale the energy from the earth, allow it to fill their entire body up to the top of their head. And you don't have to know exactly what it is, but say any thoughts that don't serve me, send them into the earth to be transmuted, and breathing in that energy of the earth, because the earth has negative ions. We have negative ions. So when they interact with one another, it creates a positive reaction. We're surrounded by inorganic things that have positive ions, and organic things have negative ions. So when the positive and the negative go together, they clash. They don't work. So it really is as simple as getting outside, being in the moment, feeling your hands on your body, feeling your feet in the earth. When you're thinking about the way that you look, you're focused on the external. We think it's the internal, but it's actually the external. So let's use the external environment to help balance out our internal environment.
That corresponds with what the Japanese call forest bathing, where you get out into the open air, or grounding, as you're talking about, where you get out onto the earth in barefoot. There are even grounding mats you can buy on Amazon, right? But it's free. You just need to go outside wherever you live. And when I go to the coast, to the ocean, those negative ions make you feel better. It cleans up your aura, cleans up your system, the atmosphere, the smell of the ocean, or the smell of the woodlands, or the smell of your backyard and the grass. It really does have a healing effect. And they have found that there are certain trees, they were called evergreens, that release terpenes. And these terpenes, when they interact with human beings as they walk past them, you don't have to hug the tree or anything, but when you walk past them, it seeps into your body's systems. It calms down inflammation and cortisol. Nature has its own apothecary. You just have to have an intention.
Everything starts with intention. Yeah. And the thing, too, we forget is that humans are part of nature. And we can have all of this scientific data, we can have all of these facts and proof, right? But humans are a part of nature. That's why we feel better when we hug our pets. That's why we feel better when we're outside, when we're walking by flowers, smelling flowers. It's because we're returning back to harmony, our true harmony.
There's a healing that goes on, and Mother Earth has her own healing abilities. And from my experience of working outside, being outside, it's a living, breathing consciousness. And through healing, we can attune ourselves to her rhythms, to her heartbeat. We can align our intentions with her rhythms. We can be in receipt, but also serve as stewards of that sacred balance. And you have to be able to make it a practice, because obviously the more you do it, the more you benefit from it. The other thing I was curious about was, in conversation with you, we talked about the notion of natural body frequency. And I found that really intriguing, because to me, it's a profound understanding of our essence. Was there a moment you discovered this idea, and how did it resonate with you on a personal level?
First, I want to say, while people say there's hundreds different types of meditations, it really comes down to two core different types. One is active and one is passive. And while active meditation, which is like guided meditations, mantras, stuff like that, is really great and powerful, passive meditation, I think, is the most underused. And in my experience, I've received the most insights from. Putting that out there.
Give us an
Oh, sorry.
example of passive meditation for people who don't know what that is.
So, passive meditation is sitting, you lay down however you feel most comfortable, most grounded, and get yourself in a state. And your intention is, I receive. Like whether you're talking to God, creator, source, the universe, whatever you believe in, I receive. Tell me what I need to know and allow the answer to come through. You ask a question and you allow the answer to come through. You don't block it. You don't try to control the visualization or anything. You just allow. I was in a passive meditation. I was just allowing. And then all of a sudden, I asked the question, what is my soul frequency? If everything in this world has a frequency, I have one too. So what is it? I'm curious. I heard the kind of a high-pitched sound, and then I also got a visual of the ocean. And then I started hearing the waves crashing. And typically when I receive visuals, I don't hear what's happening in the background, but this time I heard what was happening and I felt completely blissful, joyful, playful feeling, like my soul saying, this is my natural state right here. And I'm like, oh, okay. So now I know this is my neutral, my 0 point. Now I know, for example, like with the ocean, I'm like, how can I flow like the ocean? And that's a question that I ask myself. And I go, okay, great. One way I can flow with the ocean is going out in nature, walking with my dog, taking a lot of rest, but also when emotions come up and it's a little bit more of a tsunami and not a chill day at the beach, then allowing the tsunami as well. This is the power of knowing what your neutral is, because you can ask these deeper questions and get yourself back to what we call alignment.
Are you doing any breath work at that point, or are you lying there and asking the question?
Well, first I ground myself, so I breathe into my root chakra, which is located at the base of your spine. So if you're sitting cross-legged, that's everything that's touching the ground, including your legs too. And then I bring my awareness into my heart center or my heart chakra, and I breathe into that space. And essentially, I'm asking my heart, okay, what is my soul frequency? The heart doesn't lie. Hollywood's tried to tell us that the heart lies, but it doesn't.
You only have to visit the Heart Math Institute and all the research they've done on coherence and the heart. And I know I practice myself. To be clear, so someone who wants to practice this, they can either sit down or lie down and then tune in to their root chakra and then their heart center or their heart chakra. And then ask the question.
It can either be, what is my soul frequency? Show me my soul frequency. And everyone's intuition is different. So you hear a sound, you might get a visual, you might feel a sensation, you might feel all of it.
It's not to condition the process, like you were saying, it's to be more free occupied and listen to what I would call your inner tuition. Is that correct?
Yeah, don't try to force it, don't try to condition it, don't try to say, oh, I'm so used to receiving visuals. What's the visual? Maybe you've been so practiced in visualization, that's how you receive things, but that might not be the natural way that you receive.
So it's important to surrender to the process of it, really.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're so used to conditioning things, we want to control it all. And I have never heard of that practice. And thank you for sharing that, because of that simplicity of being able to practice without going to a certain place or downloading an app or whatever it is. We call it intuition. I like to call it inner tuition, because I believe there's a kind of a schooling that can go on from inside when you start to look at the inner aspects of your human design. and you can pay attention without conditioning it. So I think that's a wonderful thing. And thank you for sharing that. The other thing I wanted to ask you, I know you've been through this whole journey through coaching that has been marked by a lot of pivotal movements that showcase the powerful connection between mind, body, and spirit. Were there any life events that revealed the transformative potential of this connection?
I wish I could say, yes, I have this big dramatic story, and I
You
really
don't?
don't.
You don't?
I mean, I mean, don't get me wrong, like stuff has happened in my life. Like I had an eating disorder when I was younger. I've experienced death. I've experienced loss and grief, and I've experienced all these different things. But when it came to the connection of mind, body, spirit, it really was, I was doing a mindfulness training and I said, yeah, that's great, but I'm already in my head and that's not really doing anything for me. It was the question of, is there more? There has to be more. And the curiosity of it. And I think a lot of people think they have to have this dramatic story of like rags to riches, or I was living in a shack and now I live in a mansion. And it's sometimes just asking the question, is there more? Is what gets you on the path.
Many people are stuck in their heads. So they go into this over analysis, which leads to emotional paralysis. So they don't take any action. They get stuck in their heads. But I think when you ask that simple question, is there more? That's an open question to see
Yeah.
what comes through.
Yeah, honestly, I will say the biggest growth that I ever experienced in my life, because I was an A student, I was a double major in college with a minor. I was very well versed in academia. But the thing that really moved my life forward in a way where I felt fulfilled was asking, is there more? We get shamed for that because people say, no, you should be happy with where you're at. But the soul's number one mission, we always talk about our purpose and all these things, but the number one purpose of the soul is evolution. Am I growing? Am I evolving? And if you are, you're on the right track. And then the other stuff that happens, that's just extra.
Yes, you can be steeped in the halls of academia. I've spoken to many people who have been that way. But when they get a visceral feeling, that becomes the fuel that sets their feet upon the path of their growth. And it may not be comfortable for them because growth happens at the threshold of your discomfort. And tough love is tough. I've experienced that myself. And when you couch it in those terms, it brings home to me the simplicity of the questions that we ask in life. And they don't need to be ontological or the epistemology. It needs to be a very simple question. And I think that's the most effective. I want to move on to your exploration and incorporation of chakra within your embodiment experience, because that's a fascinating part of your work. Can you guide us through your personal connection to those energy centers and how they've impacted your life and well-being?
One thing that's amazing about the chakras is you're tuning into that internal guidance. And you are your number one teacher. People outside of you, they're your guide. They can help you get on the path, but you are your own internal teacher. You are the wisest person that you know, whether you believe it or not, you are when it comes to you. When I said, okay, so we need to create safety within ourselves before we start healing, that's when this entire method that I call embodied expression just came downloaded through me. And it's okay. We work with the root chakra and the crown and the third eye at the same time to create the first phase, which is safety and support. Feeling safe within yourself, grounded in your body, get out of your head, but also when you're getting grounded in your body, being in the energy of expansion and dreaming and vision. Because so much of us, we say we have dreams, but they're pretty limited. They're not as big as they can actually be, as big as we can actually be. So grounding while dreaming, and then getting into the healing of I need to decondition these fears. There's some stuff that I have, like father wounds, mother wounds, like these things from my childhood that are still affecting me today. Okay, let's get in and let's heal that with the sacral, but also with the throat. Okay, what is your truth? A lot of people say the throat chakra is about speaking the truth. It's really about your truth. Who are you at your core? What do you actually believe in? What do you actually care about? And what are your gifts that want to be expressed into the world? Working through that, because we have the safety now, we have the foundation to open ourselves up to that. And that's the phase that I call rebirth. The third phase is honor and sovereignty, which is where we get into the heart chakra and the solar plexus. Like, okay, being in our authority, because when we're used to giving our gifts and being shot down in the world, which happens a lot, we don't stand in our authority. And so standing in your sovereignty and saying, I have a choice. This is my life. I'm going to choose it. I'm not going to wake up and hit the snooze button a million times. No, I'm going to choose to wake up, meditate, do my gratitude practice, whatever it is. I'm going to choose my life, and I'm going to choose it from a place of love, a place of honor. And one of the things that I found was in doing self-love, it's so vague and we're not really taught how to do it. But when I realized honor is one of the highest forms of self-love, acknowledging ourselves and saying, thank you for showing up to me. That's gratitude, but it's also honoring yourself for showing up, honoring yourself for doing your workout, honoring yourself for eating breakfast, whatever it is. And the more you honor yourself, the more you're like, wow, I do love myself. I wouldn't take care of myself if I didn't love myself. Then we integrate that because we get stuck a little bit. So my program also includes an integration phase, because I noticed with a lot of coaching programs, they're like, here's the methodology, here's all the practices. Okay, bye, have a good life. And I'm like, no, let's make sure that you're set up for success. Because look, as much as I would love to have you in my space and in my stratosphere, if you never come to me again, I want to make sure that you are set up for the rest of your life. So let's make sure that you're that way. And then if you want to come back to me, that's great. I welcome you with open arms.
That's important, of not only integration, but the synthesis of what you're offering and the sustainability, because you're right. Many a time we choose things like a catalog. We select this particular coaching program or this particular course, and we think that's part of our self-help process, but it's shelf-help. It's not sustainable, and we move to the next thing or the next shiny object syndrome. Your job is to make you redundant.
Yeah.
But not in a fixed way, but in a way that says, I'm good to go. I've got a toolkit of understanding that I can humanize into application in a consistent way, because now I've got to practice.
Yeah. That's the point, I believe, of coaches. And there's some coaches where they're in it for the money, and you can tell. They don't fully set people up to where if they never come back to them, they kind of position themselves so they have to be the other person's savior. And that is so out of integrity with what a coach really is. No, you are a guide, you are a facilitator for someone's transformation and somebody's life. Like in the spiritual world, they call it collapsing timelines, right? But you're essentially helping people fast track. You're helping them collapse timelines. Because for me, every single person that comes to me, I know that they can do it on their own, because guess what? I did it on my own, but my progress was fast tracked when I hired a coach. And I know this. And the people that come to me, they know this too. This is one of the gripes that I have with coaching, what it's become. They're so worried about the money that they're not actually focused on the human aspect. And it's like, money is just a thing that humans created. And what if money were to disappear in 10 years and we started bartering shells as currency?
I'm right with you on that one, because there is a fine line between facilitation and manipulation. It's very easy to blur the boundaries, to blur that line where you're slipping into manipulation. And unless you have high standards and you have integrity and authenticity, and you want that person to be a commitment to their own process. And I've had people come to me and they want to sign the contract and they want to pay the money. And I say, no. What do you mean, no? Because you're telling me that you are committed. And when you're committed, that's an external process. But if you are being a commitment to you, to your investment in you, that's a different conversation, right? Now, if you come back to me with that, yeah, then pay me money, then yes, sign the contract. Let's have a conversation about it. But other than that, no, because it's going to waste your time and waste my time. Because one of the key things with time is I can give you your money back. I don't even have that policy, but I can give you your money back, but I can't give you back your time. So think very carefully about what you invest in and how you invest it and the person on the other end, because the person on the other end who is going to be your guide, like you're saying, has got to have a high level of integrity and authenticity. It's not just a money grab. Because I see on YouTube, on Facebook, make 10 grand and make six figures and every month. And there's these sage to stage gurus out there who are telling you you only need this funnel or you only need this sales process. You're dealing with human beings. And yes, money is important on one level, but it's not the main driver. Yes, of course, I want to earn a living, but I want to have the right type of clients who are committed to their own process because they want to invest in themselves. And there has to be that compatibility of alignment between you. And that leaves a bitter taste in my mouth. So let's get off the gripe. We voiced that one. Tell me about your natural body freedom course, because that challenges societal norms, because it focuses on unconditional love and acceptance. Are there any personal experiences that ignited your realization of the importance of breaking free from external influences?
It goes back to feeling like I was a prisoner in my own body. And honestly, I felt like I was a prisoner to society. Logically, I knew that no, I'm not a prisoner to society. But at the same time, over years of hearing all this different conditioning, it's still going on in the subconscious mind. And I think that's something a lot of people don't really talk about. They just try to say, oh, you just need to change your thoughts. It's not just changing your thoughts, though, because thoughts are just one aspect of our energy. And there's so many other aspects of energy. Also, if you don't go into the subconscious mind, how do you even know what you're really thinking? I think it's about 90% roughly of what we do in our day-to-day life comes from the subconscious mind.
Yeah, 90 to 95%.
Yeah, that's wild. And when you really look at it like that, you're like, no wonder if I just change my thoughts, I'm not actually changing the way that I feel. So, with natural body freedom, it's about loving yourself unconditionally, but getting deep in there and saying, it's not about the way that society says you should be loved or the way that you should love yourself, because there's a million different ways people tell us we should love ourselves. But how do you tell yourself that you love yourself? One of the things my body is like, oh, this is how you can love me, is a lot of movement. I walk minimum 8,000 steps a day. I do a workout. I love Pilates. I do a Pilates workout 7 days a week. And some people might be like, oh my God, that's so much, but my body needs it. And there's stretching that's involved too. I do stuff based off of an app because I like to be guided. Even though I have a Pilates certification, I still like to be guided because that's my me time. That's my time to tune to my body. And if I'm trying to figure out, okay, what's the next part of the sequence or keeping count, then it's hard for me to tune into my own body. So I'll usually do a recorded workout and then a guided stretch as well. And what I do is in Natural Body Freedom, we really help women get in tune with what you actually need to feel loved inside and out.
How does that tie in with the mirror work method? Because that offers a unique approach to self-love. And I'm really curious to understand, was there a moment that inspired you to create that method? And how's it transformed your own journey towards self-acceptance?
Oh, yes. So the mirror work method is basically there was one day where I was listening to music in my headphones and I was in a room that had a full length mirror. And then the thought popped in of, what if I listen to this music and dance in front of the mirror and watch myself and watch the way that I move? Because I was so disconnected from my body that I was one of those floating head people for so long, where my body was basically just this thing that I wasn't connected to. I couldn't even distinguish hunger cues from anxiety cues. I was so disconnected. So getting in front of the mirror and dancing and watching my body move, and oh, I'm watching myself move and I'm feeling myself move simultaneously really helped with that connection, which I discovered that, oh my God, years ago. I think it was like a couple of years ago at this point. Yeah. And then the music, just because, like, why not get those feel good chemicals going?
I saw your dance on your Instagram profile, you freely dancing away there. I thought it was beautiful because it struck me that you were free in yourself. It was this unfettered freedom and versatility that you had in your movement and showing that this is how my body moves. And it was full length. And I thought it was fantastic to see that. Kudos to you for doing that because I don't know if I could do that. I might look weird in tight pants and a top as well. And delving into the mind, body, spirit connection, is there a particular aspect that holds a special place in your heart, both in your work and your personal growth?
For me, it's really about the intersection of everything. Like, we spend so much of our lives fragmenting ourselves into all these different pieces, these different personalities. And if we just focus on the mind or the body or the spirit, then we're still fragmenting ourselves. We're still coming from an egoic place, which that's what the ego does. It separates. When we use those practices and we integrate all those practices, we're coming from a more soul-led approach because the soul is about unity. And that's why it's so pivotal to me. There will be people that I work with where they start getting like in their stories and in the thoughts. And I'm like, okay, but how do you feel though? Then they slow down and they're like, oh, I guess the story really isn't that important, is it? I'm like, I mean, it is, and it isn't, right?
When clients come to me, 95% of it is story. And it's important to them, but it's just a story. And a lot of it can be illusory, it can be real to them, but it's however they manage to engineer that story about their life. And when you deconstruct it, you find they're like a dandelion. When you blow on it, the seeds fly off into many
Mhm.
directions, and then you're left with the root, and you discover what the root cry is in them. Looking at your program, it's centered around accessing one's own inner magnetism and sovereignty and power, as you spoke about. For listeners, can you expand on how one can tap into those inherent qualities during their journey?
Number one, you got to be safe. You need to feel safe in order to expand. You need to feel safe in order to trust. And the official definition of sovereignty is governing your own state. But can you govern a state that you don't trust? Not really. We can try to say that we do, but what we're talking about is power and an abuse of power. So, one of the things I ask people, are you in your authority or are you in power? And if they say power, I'm like, now, do you feel like this is a strong, firm power? Or do you feel like you're abusing the power of you? And that gets them to think, oh, wow, I never really thought about it that way. Because if you're telling yourself all these negative stories like I'm fat, I'm stupid, who am I to be able to do this? That's an abuse of power. We can tune into our solar plexus chakra. It'll help us be more in our authority. We can tune into our root chakra. That's the home of our personal power for sure. But so much of the time, it really is about how can you cultivate trust within yourself? Because when you cultivate trust within yourself, then you be in your authority. And I don't like the phrase fake it till you make it.
Oh,
Because,
no, I hate that phrase.
yeah, because what's lying underneath fake it till you make it is lack, scarcity, a disbelief. But sometimes you just have to say, you know what? I'm scared, I'm uncomfortable, but I know that this is the right choice and I'm going to do it anyway. For me, I needed to change when I woke up in the morning. And it was uncomfortable for me because I had this story of I'm not a morning person. But I said, you know, what if I am? What if I am? And then I said, yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable to wake up earlier, go to bed earlier because I'm changing my patterns, but I'm going to do it anyway.
It comes back to your intention, because attention is the laser and attention is the spotlight. So when you marry those two together, you have a very powerful beam to be able to connect you to what you want to achieve. And I've done the same thing. I have this story running in my head that when I'm a night owl, I told myself that story. And people would say, yeah, I get up really early in the morning. I'd say, you're a lark, but I'm an owl. And I told myself that story for years. What then happened was 2 a.m., 3 a.m., I'd crawl into bed, get up at midday, because I could do, because I worked for myself, and then work into the night. And I convinced myself that was the best thing to do. Then I changed my pattern. Was it easy? No. I knew that I'd be more productive because now I get up at 5 a.m. in the morning and I do all my practices first thing in the morning. So I can move into the day rather than the day moving into me. And I go to bed early and I get a good night's sleep and I feel refreshed, and it's restorative sleep.
Yeah. And one of the things I work with my clients on discipline a lot because so many women come to me and they're like, I don't have discipline. And first of all, I want to say everyone has discipline because you have habits, you have patterns, you have behaviors, you have discipline. Whether it's healthy or not, that's a different story. I say healthy discipline is the things that are most effective, they move the needle forward. And unhealthy discipline is the stuff that keeps you stuck, the stuff that kind of keeps you asking, oh, why me? Instead of, okay, we're going to keep going. One of the things I tell them, we talk so much about intention, and it's so great because it's like intention is the seed, and you plant the seed, and discipline, it's the water and it's the soil.
Mm.
So I like to say the water is our habits, our behaviors, our patterns, and the soil is our environment, our internal and our external environment. So much of the time, they're like, oh, I'm saying all these affirmations, I'm doing all these different things that everyone says we should do. And it's okay, but have you set up a system for success? That's like the environment, right? That's the schedule. That's the pre-bed practices or when you wake up in the morning practices, like what actually sets yourself up for success so you want to wake up at, for me, I woke up at 6 this morning. Makes you want to wake up at 6 in the morning. And then you go about your day. And so many of us don't want to go to sleep at night because we don't feel fulfilled by our day. How can you set yourself up for success so that you're like, I feel complete, and you fall asleep? And also, one of the things that I do when I'm working with women, because I also work with like feminine and masculine energies and the alchemization of them. But one of the things I ask is, what is the gift in what you're doing? So for me, I was like a 1 a.m., 2 a.m.er as well. So I had to ask myself, there's a reason why I keep doing this. Because if I was like, oh, I want to get up at 6, 7 a.m., I would just do it. So I had to ask myself, what is the gift in being awake until 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning? And looking at my practices, I said, oh, I walk around my neighborhood at night and it's quiet, it's peaceful. I live in a city. During the day, I hear cars driving by and there's emails to answer. People want things from you. But at night, at 1 a.m, nobody wants anything from you.
Yeah, brains are asleep.
Exactly. So it's okay. So how can I give this gift to myself? This gift of what I really wanted was peace. How do I give myself the gift of peace so that I can change the habit?
Giving that gift to yourself is a very important aspect of embracing and embodying self-love. You have this idea of embodying archetypes like queens and goddesses and muses. That's really captivating. Can you explain how this transformative process empowers participants in your program and shapes their journey of self-discovery?
Yeah, it's not so much like I want them to embody the archetype of Venus or Aphrodite. First of all, what do you resonate with most? Do you resonate with being a queen, a goddess, a muse? Realistically, women are all of it. Just like a man is a king, a god, he's a muse too. We have all of that within us. And so it's really about honing into your true self. And so, how does a queen act? How does she talk? If you were a queen, how would you act? How would you talk? If you were a goddess, how would you act? Would you talk? When it comes to being a muse, do you inspire others or are you inspired by others? In Greek mythology, there's 8 muses. They all have different purposes. They all do different things.
Mm.
Like, what is your muse?
I think it's an important aspect to embody within a program because it gives you a sense of identification and it can change one's own narrative. You mentioned healing the inner world, which is a key concept in your program. Can you provide any insights into the methodology or practices you employ to address and heal participants?
I guide them into tuning into themselves, into their heart. I'm not giving them the answers. I ask them powerful questions and they answer them. And that's really what it's about. There are some people that say, how do I do this? How do I do that? And you need to know what your question is first. The
Yeah.
question isn't, how do I do it? You'll figure out how to do it on your own. What is the question behind how do I do it? And for everybody, the question is different. If I were to ask somebody, why did you join the program? And I keep my programs intimate. I like to have intimate containers of 10 women, and all 10 of them will give me a different answer. They might start out with, oh, I want to feel more confident in my body. Great. But then we dive into it, and their answer might be, I want to have an entire day where I don't think about the way I look. That's amazing. That's your goal. Let's do it. Someone might say, I want to wake up and not feel anxious. Great, let's do it. So you need to know what your question is. And a lot of the time it's about how we feel and not how we do.
That's an important balance between your emotions and your intellect and your intuition. When you ask powerful questions, that can lead you into the outcome that you really want, but it's got to be a powerful why. Heather, I want to thank you so much for joining us today because your dedication to simplicity, to guiding individuals towards self-love and authentic self-expression, and the intricate interplay that you have between mind, body, and spirit, and the transformative potential it holds is really inspiring. Do you have any parting words, and where can people find you?
Oh, man. To go on the theme, simple is honestly the most powerful. When we overcomplicate things, that's when we start giving our power away. When we simplify, that's when we keep our power, our authority for ourselves. And I can be found on Instagram. That's where I'm at the most. And my handle is I am Heather Gale. And you can always message me, talk to me, any questions. I am here for you.
Heather, thank you so much. It's been an honor and a privilege to speak with you. And thank you for being a bastion of simplicity that's very much needed in this world.
Thank you.
That's it for today's episode of Transcendent Minds. We hope you enjoyed this exploration of the mysteries of the mind and the human experience. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future episodes, we would love to hear from you. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts. And if you feel inclined, please leave a rating and a review, as this goes a long way. And follow us on social media to stay up to date with the latest episodes. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, keep transcending your mind.